What is going on, everybody? We are live from Las Vegas. It's time for the GameDay Huddle. I've got the Godfather Jimmy here and Jay up, of course.
What's up?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good. Another day in paradise.
You know, just talking about that, you had some fun this weekend. You were streaming on the Whatnot app, huh?
Oh man, brought back some old thoughts and prayers when I was sitting there. I'm like, and then because I've done it, but Steve's always been there to like click the buttons for me. So I go live first thing, and I'm like, I look over at Cole and I go, "Have you ever done this before?" He's like, "No, not on Whatnot." I'm like, all right. It'll be a learning experience for both of us.
Well, I told him, I said, when I came in, I go, honestly, I thought I would be hearing from you. I thought that I would get a phone call from him. So I kind of like, when he went live, I kind of set myself up where I was stepped away from our booth so that way I could. And then in like 10 minutes, I didn't hear from him. So then I'm like, all right, I guess he's good. And I went back and
hey, man,
he rocked it.
Without a hitch?
Went off without a hitch. I think I had to drop the stream once because of some glitches, and I couldn't see when the sales were ending. So, but dropped it, went right back on, and all worked out well.
Yeah, that's good. But yeah, so you did that, and that's because we were at the Front Row Card Show. So we were at the Front Row Card Show this weekend. Shout out to them. Great event. It was at the Tuscany Hotel and Suites. I'd never been to the Tuscany, I have to be honest with you, and I was blown away.
Me either. First time I've been there was for trade night.
I'm staying there at some point.
It's a very cool, smaller hotel. The pool's a little bit smaller, but if you're looking for a place in Las Vegas where you can go and not be surrounded by the whole hoopla of everything, it's very nice in there.
You know what, too? When I was...
Possible.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
No, I'm going to tell you, though.
Hit up Steve.
Yeah, exactly. Tuscany, you're welcome. But no, so when I was up on Saturday, I was up, the ballroom that we did trade night in was across from, or actually right above like the hotel lobby, right? Mm-hmm. So, by the way, trade night was a blast. We had a good time. And I looked down, and some of the UFC fighters from Friday night were checking out. So they stayed there. They were at the Tuscany.
Wow.
And I'm not surprised. And the reason I'm not surprised is because that property's got an easy in and out, very laid back. They could probably walk the property and not get hassled and bothered. And that's all kind of important when you're talking about, the celebrity side of things. But we did have trade night, as you mentioned. Trade night sponsored by the Union Marketplace. We had our friends at Drip. We had our friends at Platinum Protectors got involved. And trade night was a lot of fun. They had a nice room. Then we had a little rotunda outside. So there's inside, outside. We got to see some of our friends we haven't seen for a while. It's kind of getting the whole, crew back together. We gave away a ton of stuff, which was great.
Was fun.
And
We'd love to do that.
And then trades got made. And, shout out again, Union Marketplace. And just so you guys know, we will be the trade night sponsor at the Union Marketplace show. Make sure you make your plans for that. It's October 14th through 16th in Del Mar. So book your hotel. The Hilton, that's a little trick. That's a little insight. That's where it'll be at. The Hilton is a host hotel for the Union Marketplace show, and that's where trade night will be. And by the time we get to that trade night, I think it's going to be massive. Because we've got things in the works that are going nuts right now. And all I'm going to say is, Burbank, I hope you guys are ready.
By the time we get to trade night, then we're going to be extremely tired. We're having 3 shows back to back to back. So we're going in when we start the Beckett Market Industry Summit, which is the card show is going to be Saturday to Sunday. And then I have the conference Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then Las Vegas card show starts right back up Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we have 3 days off, and we fly down to Del Mar, and we're doing Del Mar show. So literally within that 3-week period, we're going to have every single day there's something going on with cards. It's going to be insane. Yeah,
it's going to be nuts, but it's going to be a good time. And then you have even more stuff going up to it. As we mentioned, we have the Burbank show coming up. Phoenix is coming up as well. That will, at some level, whether we just attend, whether we're vending, maybe we're doing both, I don't know. We'll be there. We've got all kinds of stuff going on with all these different events, so should be a good time. But yeah, Union Marketplace, we will definitely be there sponsoring that show for the trade night, and I'm looking forward to that, as I think everyone is, because it's Del Mar. Let's be honest.
Del Mar is awesome. Yeah, I love Del Mar.
Yeah, we did it last year. Amazing show. I think all of us left that show saying this is the best place in the world to have a card show. The venue where it's at is at the racetrack. So it's in this big open area. It's a beautiful area. The convention area, there's good parking. It's easy to get in and out. Why? Because They have races. They know how to get people in and out of everything quickly.
Is it right in the middle before you walk into the...
There's a gigantic building.
That's
It's
where they bring
amazing.
the horses through.
Yeah.
During races, they'll bring the horses through to kind of show them.
That's where we did the trade night the night Saturday night was right where the horses all get walked through and parked in their little cubby holes or whatever. Yeah, stalls. There we go.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. Lots of stuff going on, and there was tons of action. And we'll talk about it later in the podcast today about kind of what we saw at the show and some of the trends and happenings. So we'll kind of talk about that. But today popped off the AP Top 25 came out for college football.
Yes, it did.
Run through it real quick, and then I know, JF, you have some thoughts on the top 5, but let's run through it. We got Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Utah, which I think is interesting, Michigan, Oklahoma, what is that? Boston, is it, who's in 10? I think it's Boston. Oregon, Baylor. I'm sorry, Baylor. Then we've got Oregon, which again, being an Oregon alumni, that's interesting. Whenever we get ranked high, I always say, well, we're going to finish out of the top 25.
You look at it, you got 3 schools in the top 15 from the Pac-12, which that hasn't been the case in the last couple of years.
It's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
Because when I look at this, and this is my first takeaway from this entire thing, is where SC is at. Right?
Yeah.
Where's USC?
They're
Where are they?
USC's 14.
14th on this list?
Yeah.
Isn't that the same number of transfers that they had come in that were all like top 5 recruits?
Yeah, they'll climb this list. They're not going to stay at 14. Obviously, they haven't had time to gel yet, but they'll climb this list. Like 14 is a pretty low ranking, but they'll manage to find themselves in the top 10.
Especially with a new coach in Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
He took over that program.
Right.
And he's hot and heavy. Everybody is talking SC, and I think the SCs and UCLA are getting ready to move out of the Pac-12 here very quickly. Go off to the Big 12.
The big whatever.
Big 17, I think, or 18.
Big 25.
Yeah,
the big everything.
Whatever they have, how many schools they have left in that conference, but we'll see. So,
right.
Interested to see that they're in the top 15. Utah, they played well every year.
So
what they did last year in the Rose Bowl.
I love their quarterback.
7,
Utah's quarterback is my, personally, watching the body of work is my favorite quarterback in this year's class.
Okay.
And watch him because you're not going to because he's going to be on at 6 o'clock Mountain Time, 9 o'clock Eastern or 8 o'clock Eastern. I just don't know that many people are going to see him. The kid is unbelievable. He's really good.
He had to come out party last year though in the Rose Bowl when they went up against Ohio State and C.J. McLeod.
But I don't know if that's a coming out party because I actually think it happened when they played Oregon at home the first time.
Well, they beat him twice.
And then they beat him and. Night and day different. What I remember seeing Steven Jackson play for Oregon State, right? And as soon as he touched the ball, you're like, that's the best player on the field.
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau was on the field in those games, and he was the best player on the field.
Yeah,
and it was obvious.
That's why they're getting the respect there at number 7. They're not sneaking up on anybody. You know what I mean?
Of course.
The jury's out. Everyone knows about you now. You're not sneaking up on anyone.
No. But so tell me about the top 5, Jay.
The top 5, of course, you had Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, and Notre Dame. So to me, no real big surprises. What's going to surprise me is which one of these 4 teams is going to drop out of the top 4. Like we see it every year. It's not ever the same 4 teams in the Final Four. So my bet is probably going to be Clemson dropping out. I think Alabama stacked again, Georgia stacked again, and Ohio State's always there. Ohio State's that team that they play in a tough conference. They're going to lose a game somewhere down the road, you know what I mean? But they're good enough that they're going to be there again. My pick is going to be Clemson to drop out of this top 4.
Did you see how easy Notre Dame's schedule is?
That's why they're going to
Oh my God.
keep that spot.
They're out of conference. Well, they don't have a conference, first off.
Yeah.
But their elective games that they went out and got this year are so bad.
Is it garbage?
It's so bad. It's like, how is this team good? Like, you could tell they're trying to make a national championship run.
Yeah.
They're trying to get there because they need to be undefeated. They're going to have 2 close games because they play USC and they play Clemson this year. So they'll have 2 close games. They win both those games. They're sitting there. They're definitely going into the top 4 for the championship.
And that's what I think that's what's going to take place is Notre Dame's going to jump Clemson.
Can we
Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, they'll stay there.
Can we conspiracy theory that for a second? Do you think that they take on that schedule because they know that they're probably going to be joining a conference? Because it sounds like that's going to happen. So now it's like
forced. They're going to get forced to join.
Right. So doesn't this become the showcase for it?
Yeah.
So if you do that this year, then here comes who's going to come at you with the biggest deal, because their TV contract comes with them.
It's massive.
And that's the massive thing. They bring something to whatever conference they go to.
Yeah.
But they know that they don't have to sell themselves. Everyone knows that, you know.
And you could say
But a national championship run would be a really nice bartering tool.
But yeah, if you're playing a bunch of cupcakes all season, and then all of a sudden you get to the big dance and you're playing Ohio State's and Alabama's and Georgia, I mean,
yeah, we'll see what happens. It's always interesting. I think they always play well. I think last year they were okay. I think they were probably in the top 10 in teams last year. They brought back everybody. They literally didn't lose anybody on that whole team. I think they lost maybe 2 of their starters. So they bring back everybody.
Yeah.
They're going to be hungry. You know, all those kids are there mostly longer than 2 years anyways if you go to Notre Dame. Usually you're going to Notre Dame to get a degree and to go on to be a surgeon or a physicist.
Not to play football.
Yeah, something like that.
Unless you're Rudy.
Facts. Unless you're Rudy.
We'll see what happens with him.
Then you're signing autographs for sure.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap this up here in a moment, but in the top 5, I ask you 2 questions. Who's the first to lose, and who do you think's the best?
Okay, Alabama, you can't knock them until they lose. I think they bring back a ton of talent. They always reload with a ton of talent. Now with the new NIL deals, we're going to start seeing these other schools start creeping. And I still think we're about 2 years away from that.
I agree.
Because they just started happening this last offseason. So now those guys are coming in as freshmen. Mm-hmm. And usually true freshmen don't start in college. Usually they make them all redshirt at least 1 year. So once all those NIL players start jumping in the mix and start playing, yeah, I think Alabama's going to start taking some steps down because they don't have the big money like the Texases and Texas A&Ms and the Miamis have. So I think the first team to lose is going to be Clemson. I don't think Clemson showed us anything last year when I think most of their games they scored less than 21 points. I think they averaged 22 points. In 2 of the games they put up 60 against D2 schools.
Right.
So you take those 2 games out of it, that means they're averaging about 14 to 17 points a game. Right. That's not getting it done in college.
It's not in college football, no.
I was going to say Ohio State's going to lose first out of these 4, but I still think they're going to be in the final 3 when all said and done. And Alabama, no one's going to top Alabama. I just feel bad for Nick Saban because he always does things the clean way.
You're never in the wrong.
Right.
I sit with, I think Georgia is going to end up winning this year, and I think it's going to be a defensive championship. And I think that
they lost a lot of guys.
As good, I know, but as good as they were last year, because they had a starting NFL defense last year. Yeah. You go around the league, it's starters now, right? Well, they bring back probably the top defensive player in the nation, and the top defensive cornerback in the nation, and then they had like 3 or 4 recruits that are supposed to be as good, maybe even as better than some of the guys that already left. So it might not look like it from the jump. They might play some close games and stuff, but they might be one of those teams that kicks it into gear and just starts shutting teams down. And it could be a sneaky play to play defense in that league, which, yes, I know that defense comes out, but usually defense still gets trumped by offense in that league.
Alabama played Georgia last year, right?
Yeah.
That was the national championship, right?
Yes. So there's a chance of that. But I think that the first to lose, I think, is Ohio State. And the reason I think Ohio State's drew a pretty rough gauntlet for their out-of-conference games this year, too.
Right. Throws out the hot take of the day by saying Kentucky wins it all.
Kentucky's like number 20.
He is a Kentucky homer, let's be fair.
Well, to make a comment like that, you have to be, for sure.
Yes.
Do I think Kentucky's going to have a great run? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ever since Jared Lorenzen played for the Kentucky Wildcats, I'm a fan. And if you don't know who Jared Lorenzen is, he's actually passed away.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, but he was a Giants quarterback, and he bounced around the league after that. But he was like 300 pounds. Great looking kid.
Did you see him after though? After he was out of the NFL?
Oh yeah, he was
the
like
videos. He was like pushing almost 500, and he was still like running around. I was like, this is ridiculous.
The 500-pound QB, bro.
The 500-pound QB. Well, that's funny. Well, speaking about QBs, I want to get into this weekend, and so we're actually going to take a look at 4 different rookie quarterbacks from this weekend that started or played significant snaps in their preseason games. And then we'll talk about more than these 4, but this is really the highlight reel of these 4 of kind of the better 4 performances, I think, from the week. So let's take a look at it.
Rolling right is Pickett. He's been really good in the camp like that. Chase Sternberger is going to get first down yardage on his first pass as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Great start.
38 yards for Sims. He had a 38-yard punt return earlier to set up the second score of the game. Pickett hits another receiver, and that is Jalen Warren. A good, healthy game. This crowd.
Howell on third down. Catch is made by Patterson, but he stopped short. Quick release. Jonathan Williams in the backfield. From the 25, off the fake to Williams. Howell rolling right. He throws. It's caught for a first down and much more by Dax Milne. Takes it out to the 48-yard line for a gain of 20.
Second and 10. Ritter again to that same side of the field. There's Geronimo on first and goal. Play fake. There's Hesse again. This time he hauls it in for the touchdown.
Willis with time, throwing from the pocket, crossing pattern, passes complete inside the 15, down to the 10, and spinning all the way to the... They'll mark him down at the 7-yard line. That's Hassan Haskins. Hassan Haskins checks into the backfield. Willis runs to the right, Chase to the left. He's going to try to run for the corner, and he's going to squeeze in for the touchdown. Steven Means was tracking him down, but he okeyed.
All right, so as you guys can see, you had Kenny Pickett, you've got Sam Howell in there, you've got Desmond Ritter, you've got Malik Willis, and I don't want to take away Bailey Zappi, played significant snaps this weekend. We had some guys that are from the 21 class that played significant snaps, and the Kellen Monds and all that. But let's talk about these first 4, and we'll kind of go in order. Kenny Pickett, I think today is the guy being talked about the most, and I think part of that is because his situation is, I know.
You can let this guy just bash me right here in the show? Like,
or not yet.
He didn't even let you finish your comment.
I know he didn't.
I
know. He's being talked about the most because there's camp rumblings that Trubisky has not had a very good camp, and he came in unprepared is what it's kind of the writers. Now, again, we talked about Pittsburgh. If you remember, we talked about how rough. Doesn't matter, they're not a big market. When you're in their market, their writers destroy you.
Did you
the
watch
media
it? Did
destroys
you watch that
it.
game at all?
I watched every snap of every rookie quarterback that went this weekend.
Okay, so the Steelers game was on TV, and I had it on, and when they switched quarterbacks and they went to Kenny Pickett, he ran out of the field, and they gave like a standing ovation. Like, this is what's going to happen when you start Trubisky week 1. No, it's these guys, like the Pittsburgh, I said it last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they start the season 0-2, they're going to be screaming for Kenny Pickett. They don't care. They
Tim
just want
Tebow, Tim Tebow effect?
Yes, I'm telling that, and they'll have to go to Kenny Pickett. He looked good.
So you're saying my boy Desmond Ritter didn't look good?
I'm saying he looked okay, but so did Mariota.
Has Mariota ever made it through a season?
He hasn't, but my point is that Kenny Pickett will be on the field before Mariota.
We have our bet.
So you guys, have your hot take on.
I feel better about it now. Go ahead.
Right. You have your hot take. So the one takeaway that I have, and then I'll talk to you guys about each one of these guys, but we'll start with Pickett, was every single offense seemed to really kind of go short pass play, dump off, wheel routes, stuff like that. So we didn't really get them to showcase their arms. The one guy that did was Sam Howell. Sam Howell threw the ball down the field. Bailey Zappi threw the ball down the field, which was a little surprise. But starting with Pickett, I think, trumped a little bit of the we don't know if he's quite ready feel, because he apparently is playing in this game way better than he's practicing. Now, I haven't watched him practice, but that's the take that's coming out. So of Kenny Pickett's and kind of what you saw, what did you like? What do you think is a holdup still? Did you see anything that's a red flag, a green flag? What's your take on Kenny Pickett at this first appearance that we see him in a Steelers uniform?
I felt like a lot of the rookie quarterbacks coming in, they kind of not dumbed down the playbook, but they made short to intermediate throws to get their confidence up, which what do you have to do? They're not going to come out on 1st and 10 and throw a 50-yard bomb that gets picked off in the preseason. You want your guys to get in there and get comfortable. So you saw a lot of rollouts, You saw a lot of short passes and yards after the catch. So I thought they did a good job with Kenny Pickett, just getting him kind of acclimated and kind of dumbing down the playbook a little bit for him so that he could get out there. You know, they're going to have nerves. I don't care who it is. They're going to have nerves out there. And I thought Kenny Pickett rose above that.
Yeah, they're never going to show anything. No offensive coordinator is going to go out there and show any plays that they're going to run in the regular season. They're just not. Yeah. Unless it's the normal bootleg right, pass right, those normal plays. But they're not going to show their normal offense. They're not going to show what they're going to be playing on Sunday with. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to give anybody any more tape than they already deserve. So what we're going to see is basic football. You're not going to see any big throws. You're not going to see any trick plays or gadgets or, motions or anything like that. All they're going to do is line up, run the play, get off the field, try not to get everybody hurt.
Kenny Pickett's passer rating was 132.6.
Yeah, and there was one throw that I saw him make, which was actually a slant, and it wasn't in the package of promo that we had there. And the reason being is because I wanted to showcase one thing, which was every single one of these quarterbacks, which what you just alluded to, were moving. Mm-hmm. They all were moving. They're all moving with the ball. They were moving the pocket to really kind of give them maybe an extra second or two for decision making. But what I saw with Kenny Pickett was a throw on a slant pattern where the throw, his arm was a lot stronger than I think people were giving him credit for, and he got it in there in front of a linebacker, was able to beat it. It was a good throw, good 7-yard pickup. It was one of those throws that, like, if you can't make that throw on third down in the NFL, you're not playing. And we see so many quarterbacks who can't make that throw in the NFL, and they end up on the field because guys get hurt or whatever it is. So I thought that was a really nice sign for him.
He also had 3 carries for 16 yards, too.
Yeah, and we have all known he was mobile. If you recall, he has that highlight of, I'm going to slide, I didn't slide, and now they changed the rule because of him, the Kenny Pickett rule. So the next guy to talk about, Sam Howell. I don't know how much you saw of Sam Howell. Sam Howell saw pretty significant snaps with the Washington's first-teamers. He saw some of the guys that actually I didn't think would get as much playing time in the game as they did. Apparently, Rivera is not happy at all with Wentz. The word out of the thing there is that Carson is the starter, but Carson better get it together and he better do it quickly. Everything from he came into camp unprepared, not a guy that should be. And the comment that I heard is that for being a guy who's now been in the league, what has he been in the league? 8 years, 10 years?
Same year as Dak.
10 years?
2016.
16, so 8 years?
Yeah.
No,
6 years. 6 years. Since he's been in the league, he didn't come in, no X's and O's, no nothing like that. Like they just it didn't sound like he was prepared. And the story that I was hearing was basically, here's how Wentz was preparing. It wasn't very good. And then Mahomes took everybody for 2 weeks to a beach city and worked the playbook and taught everybody all this stuff and everything. Just the complete opposite, right? Yeah. And you're hearing this. Now I'll tell you this. We had Ron Rivera in San Diego with the Chargers. Ron Rivera was not a guy that likes to go out and talk about his team, especially specific players. He'll talk about how the core group did, the defense looked good, secondary, that type thing. He does not like to talk about individuals, which tells you he's ticked off.
Well, I think that goes with probably about 99% of the coaches out there. None of them are going to single out a quarterback or any player on the team.
Controversy.
Yes, they never do. But if they do single out somebody, there's really, really something bad going on. Because at that point, they just don't care. They either went to the front office and let them know, and they gave them something that he didn't want to hear.
Right.
So then now he throws it out into the media as a startup. People let's get rid of this guy because he's terrible. So yeah, if it gets out, there's a reason why it's getting out.
Yeah, everything I read about Carson Wentz so far in this preseason or the training camps is that he's just looked very inaccurate, and it's not even like deep throws. Like he's looking inaccurate on even like the short throws. My problem is that like they did well with Taylor Heineke last year, and they still have Heineke on the roster. So if they do end up getting rid of Wentz or he gets hurt like his annual injury, do they move to Heineke and let him kind of salvage, or do they go right to Howell? That's my whole thing, because Heineke is the next man up, and he hasn't done anything to not be, at least considered a starting quarterback.
I think at this point, Washington's looking at it. If they can win the division, if they think they can win the division, then they're probably going with Heineke. But if they don't think that they're going to win the division, they're probably going with Sam Howell. and Heineke's done at the end of the year.
Yeah, Howell was only 9 for 16 passing, but his passer rating was 86.7, but he killed him in rushing because he had 3 carries for 19 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns.
So, and what I saw was he was very accurate on the throws that he made, putting the ball where he needed to. In the highlight package, he threw one on the run a little low, but he was accurate overall, putting the ball exactly where it needed to be. He didn't look like he was making mistakes, and when he was pressured, he ran and got down. He did the things he was supposed to. And we'll talk about another guy here in a minute that was a complete opposite of that. So then, Desmond Ridder. Ridder looked to me like the guy that was ready to go. Ridder to me was the quarterback that I was like, he's week 3, week 4 of the season, ready to go. I don't know if they've turned down the offense for him to be able to do it. He looked incredibly comfortable.
Yeah, he wasn't very accurate, though.
Right.
Like, the balls that, because I watched pretty much that whole, once he went in, because of me and this guy's little bet that we have going on.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I see him on, I'm going to sit here and watch it. So I watched basically almost all the plays that he had in the game. He didn't look very accurate to me. He looks like he's got a strong arm. Like he could get the ball places and fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. His feet are amazing. Like he could get out of the pocket. He's fast as hell. He's good, but he didn't look very accurate. A lot of low balls, a lot of balls that the receivers had to go and get. But I was impressed. I was like, oh, okay. He looks like a good little rookie quarterback.
No, you're right. He was 10 of 22 only in passing. His rating was 89.8, so it wasn't terrible. He did throw 2 touchdown passes, but, man, he destroyed it in rushing. 6 carries, 59 yards. He had a long of 20, a 20-yard rush. So he did.
But one of his touchdown passes was highly underthrown. Like, way underthrown by about 3 yards. The receiver stopped. The defender ended up going over his back, and it was pass interference, but he still caught it. Like, it was all made by that receiver.
The throw that I showed, the touchdown that he threw, the small little fake handoff left, roll out, and dump it off, that's a tough throw. That's a hard throw. Not a lot of quarterbacks make that in the NFL. So seeing him be able to make that throw over the defender in a short spot, moving, that was the stuff that I looked at and said, that's stuff of a guy that's a little closer than we realize. But I do agree the accuracy was probably my biggest hang-up, was he was going to need to improve there before they really take some serious looks at him. What did you think overall of Desmond Ridder?
I thought he looked like he was NFL ready myself. My only holdup is not that Ridder is a bad quarterback. I just don't know. Atlanta knows they're not going to win. Okay? They know that they have not only the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they have the New Orleans Saints who are in their division. Yeah. So they know they're not trying to win, right? And so they're going to start with Mariota until Mariota gets hurt. And they're not going to care if they start the season 0-4 with Mariota. They're not going to be like, oh, Panic City, we got to get Ridder in. They're just not. They're not trying to win. They're not tanking, but they have a lot of young players, so they're okay with finishing again in the top 3 or 4 in the draft and only winning a few games this year and be like, okay, let's go grab another stud running back or a stud wide receiver or grabbing somebody for the offensive line. They're okay doing that. If Ridder shows them enough that they don't need to draft a quarterback, I don't think they're going to switch to him right away. They're going to let him just take his time behind Mariota until he gets hurt.
I think you're probably right there. I think that offense is actually going to chuck it up a lot more than people realize. I think they're going to come out.
Their defense isn't great.
I think they're going to come out throwing. I don't think they're going to come out running. I think they're going to come out throwing, knowing that they've got a mobile quarterback set that can move the pocket and do some stuff like that. And I think that they're going to come out and they're going to try to that fan base, showcase what they picked up in the draft with wide receivers. I think they're going to try to show off those wide receivers a little bit.
Yeah.
So
it was kind of disheartening that Drake London got hurt in the first series and hurt his knee, and then he immediately, because obviously you don't want to get hurt more.
Nothing serious though, right?
Nothing serious, but it's kind of scary that he plays a couple snaps, has a big catch, and then next thing you know, it's like, and he's out of the game with a knee injury. It's like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, super precautionary is what I saw. They were being over cautionary. And again, I think that's their showcase. They want to showcase those guys, right? So. The final guy was Malik Willis. Now, Malik Willis in a really interesting situation, right? Sits on a team that I think we all think is probably a pretty good team overall. They didn't really lose much from last year. They're going to get Derrick Henry back healthy. He showed he was healthy when he came back in the playoffs.
Well, they lost A.J. Brown.
They lost A.J. Brown, right, as far as the wide receiver. But I'm saying as far as like their offensive line and stuff like that. A.J. Brown, you're not going to replace his productivity. But if they spread the ball around a little bit more, they might still be able to get that done. But I think that in that division, I don't think that any of us are sitting here saying, well, if they won the division, I wouldn't be surprised.
No. And
right?
With the Titans, I think we all know that it's run heavy first, and it doesn't matter what receivers are out there. You're going to be keying on Derrick Henry. You're going to be trying to stop their run. And what's that do? It puts one-on-one coverage against those DBs and the tight ends that go up against the safeties. And you're going to get that one-on-one. And most often in the NFL, if you get one-on-one coverage, the receiver or the tight end or whoever it is wins that battle.
Yeah, so the flag comes more often than not.
That's usually what happens. Yeah. And Tennessee's going to continue doing it. As long as Derrick Henry's on that field, you're putting 7-8 guys in the box. You have to.
That's why
otherwise you're not going to stop. Yeah.
I love Woods this year.
I think he's going to have a phenomenal year. Yeah. That's one of my top receivers this year that you could get pretty late in the draft and still I think they're going to have a good year. Mm-hmm.
Well, I look at it this situation as Tannehill has shown he's good enough, he's serviceable enough, but how come every time we talk about Ryan Tannehill, it sounds like our regime doesn't trust in him? And that's what it sounds like. It happened in Miami, he got hurt, comes back, shows he can play, and then he ends up leaving and goes to Tennessee. Right?
I think it's because he has this moniker against him when he was in college at A&M, and he was a wide receiver, and they kind of made him be a quarterback, and so no one's ever had their full trust in the guy, even though he's proven on every team he's been on that he's good. He's not great, he's not a Hall of Famer, but he's a very serviceable quarterback. He gets the job done, he doesn't make a ton of mistakes, and he runs, and the running comes from that wide receiver background. So he knows how to play. He's a gamer, in my opinion, and I think he's a good quarterback. He is getting up there in age, though. He's 34 years old.
Right.
So not everybody can play till they're 43, 42, 43 like Tom Brady. Like, he starts to kind of break down a little bit, and you saw that happen with Matt Ryan. He looked terrible, and I know it's preseason. He's just kind of getting the kinks out, but he looked terrible in preseason, Matt Ryan. He looked completely lost. Their receivers weren't getting any separation, and he was trying to force it in these small windows. Father Time is going to catch up with him eventually, and that's why Willis looks. To me, Willis looks like an exciting player.
So Willis looks exciting to me, and I'm gonna tell you exactly who I think from the first time I saw him wearing a Ravens jersey was Lamar Jackson with a better arm.
Yes.
The difference being though is, right? He's bigger. Mm-hmm. He would not get down. He turned a corner and went right at a linebacker.
Yeah.
And these are all things that I guarantee you he is getting destroyed today watching tape of.
Yeah, how many times can you do that? You can't. You're not gonna have a long career.
He can't.
It only takes one.
Yeah.
Takes one.
And that's why in the highlight package I held him last and I put his touchdown run in there because even on that he should have got out of bounds.
Yeah.
He should not have scored that touchdown. He should have got out of bounds and then they should have went I formation and ran it up the gut. And instead he cuts back and it works out this time.
It's a Robert Griffin Jr., the third,
yes,
the seventh, or whatever you want to call him. It's his theory. When he came in, the guy was a gamer.
Yeah.
The guy can throw, he can run, he was good, but he didn't have the mindset to get down or get out of bounds.
Yeah.
He went into every hit, and as soon as he got hurt, he was never the same player.
And, I worry about that a little bit seeing this. Because this is athlete for athlete, speed for speed, size for size. Where I can't look at his college, I can't look at Liberty's games and be like, there's an equal match on the defense for him, right? He's a man amongst boys, right? Here, he comes back around a little bit. He got stood up a couple of times. He took a hit. There's a play where he rolled out. He ended up trying to throw the ball deep down the sideline recklessly instead of throwing it out of bounds. He goes out, he goes and throws it, and he gets trucked. And it's like, this preseason, you're getting trucked? There's something wrong with that.
What the problem is, too, is that what I feel bad about this whole situation is that by the time he's ready to take over, which may be a year, maybe two, Henry's not going to be there. Or if he is there, he's not going to be as effective. Like, when you start to see these running backs break down, especially with the carries that Henry's getting, he's getting a lot of carries. And towards the end of the, I don't care how good you are, I don't care if you're a Hall of Fame running back, when you put that kind of wear and tear on your body as a running back, you start to break down early. And everyone knows the cliff is 30 years old. But if you go back and look lately, the last few years, it's starting to happen like around 28, 29, and then by 30, you're pretty much out of the league unless you're, Frank Gore, who played till he was 37 years old. But my problem is that will these guys get on the field together? Because it would be magic if you could get Willis and Henry together.
Of course.
But will they ever be on the field together?
So the way that, I mean, obviously if there's an injury this year, he sees playing time.
Yeah,
and I think that that shifts, and you have 2 running backs in the back for the rest of the season, and you throw the ball 15 times a game. Like, I think that's what they would end up doing, is they would have to shorten up the offense. A couple guys that had interesting starts to theirs, and we didn't put up highlights of them because there wasn't really much highlights. And one of them was in Carolina. Now, first off, let's talk about the fact that in Carolina, both Baker and Donald look like they could be the guy.
Yeah.
I think they both look like they could be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But you got another guy there, didn't look that great.
No.
He was 1 for 9, right?
1 for 9, yeah.
1 for 9. It was not a very, very good start. And, you know, he looked deer in the headlights. The game was too fast. You know what it reminded me of, and I hate to make this comparison so fast, but Ian Book last year when he came in the game, or that first time Jordan Love took the field, they just looked completely out of whack and did not look right.
Jordan Love again this year. This is his 3rd year.
He only 3 picks.
It's his 3rd year, for God's sakes. You still don't know the damn playbook? Like, he's throwing it to the receiver's not even going there. You're looking at this like, I guarantee Aaron Rodgers is sitting on the sideline looking and saying, really, you've drafted this idiot in the first round.
Traded up
to get him. When I'm sitting here, like, he's got to be beyond himself.
Yeah.
Looking at, hey, I could have had a receiver. I could have had somebody to help me out on offense.
Yes.
Instead, you give me this guy who's never gonna play down anything.
Especially because last year they said it was like the year of the receiver. Like, everyone loved the receivers that came out last year.
Yeah.
And he could have had one of those studs, and they traded up. That's what I thought they were going for, and they traded up. And then we got Jordan Love. The year before they got Jordan Love. I don't know. Watching that game was mind numbing though. I love that he keyed on Dubs though. That was my guy who was 3 up from last week. Romeo Dubs.
Yeah.
I think he got like 7 targets.
So how many did he catch of those?
3, and he had a long touchdown. Because all the targets weren't on. The Dubs did drop one that was right in his hands though.
So one takeaway from the Green Bay side of things was that no one ran really good routes. Like, no one. None of the receivers ran very good routes. But they're all young, and that's why.
The whole crew.
And this is going to be, I told someone at the show on Saturday, this is going to be the telltale to see if Aaron Rodgers is actually that quarterback that can make those receivers better like Tom Brady did for years in New England. We're going to find out now because he had some skill set guys before. Now he doesn't have that. He's got guys that are going to be decent route runners, not great. They're not going to be the fastest guy on the field. I do like, Dubs, just like you said. I think he is one of those guys that could be a little bit like that, but he doesn't have it across the board.
No.
He's not looking at Donald Driver and, he's just down the,
is their
right.
As their number 1.
Right.
So I don't know.
Carolina, interesting though. But yeah, unfortunately, he just that was not good. And then Bailey Zappi, I mentioned him before. He played significant snaps for New England. I think when he first came out in the first series, because I sat in the shop with you guys, and I heard that's not good. The first series, he didn't look like he had it together. But from that point forward, he went to the sideline, he grabbed his Chromebook, he sat there and he looked over what he did wrong. He looked to me like a guy that was ready to play at this level. And I guess what we're seeing there as a fan is what the coaching staff is seeing in New England. Now, whether that's them hyping it up so they've got some trade bait in a couple of years or a year, he came in good, he's solid. But we all know what Bill's done in the past, right? He's always taken a second-string quarterback and turned him into.
He did it with Matt Castle, and Matt Castle got paid, and he never did anything afterwards. So, he's done it before.
Brian Hoyer's had a long career backing up in the NFL because of what he did in New England. He's back there again, right? But Zappi looked good. He made some throws. He's the one guy that got to stretch the field. He threw the ball down multiple times downfield. They really tried to push the ball downfield. I thought that was interesting to see with him.
Yeah, he finished well, too. 19 for 32, 205 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So he actually got a lot of, 32.
Yeah, for a preseason, that's a lot of throws.
That's 30 more throws than Mac Jones had in that really windy game.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's what they wanted to see. What was your takeaway on Zappi? What did you think?
Yeah, I think he's a decent player. It's hard to tell now, but the writing's on the wall that he can play. We'll see what happens coming in. I don't take a lot in this first preseason game for everybody. The third preseason game, now they only do 3 this year. So I don't know when all the starters games, probably going to play next week 2, and then sit them all week 3 because they're only playing 3 preseason games. So we'll see. I think let's get them in against some starters. Let's see how they look against some actual starters and running with the ones. And
I think our biggest takeaway here is going to be who looks better next week than they did this week against a little bit better competition, right?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the takeaway where we're going to be able to tell. But I thought it was interesting to see as many of them getting as many attempts and as many throwing attempts was kind of the interesting thing, right? That, really what was the minimum in attempts? 9?
Yeah.
Was that the minimum that somebody got? So it's pretty close to that, right? So just any of those rookie quarterbacks, and it was Carolina, and that's because unfortunately why? Because he didn't make it. He didn't complete any passes.
One pass for 11 yards is his completion. That's where he finished. 1 for 9 for 11.
Yeah, that's not a good way to get kicked off in the NFL.
But I mean, like they say in Carolina, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. So,
yeah, that's true.
But you do have 2 guys that both have played significant amount of football in the NFL with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, and I think with that team going into this year, I think you're okay with both of those guys. Saying if either one of those guys play, I think we'll be. No one's looking at them to make the playoffs anyways, but
we're not. But let me remind you, last year, Sam Darnold and Christian McCaffrey was healthy. They were 4-0. They were 4-0 to start the season when CMC was healthy and Sam Darnold was on the field.
The key to that is CMC.
It is 100%.
And he's playing at the top level that he can play at. He's almost an unstoppable player.
Yeah.
He can catch the ball. He can run. He's incredible to watch. If he's not healthy and he's lost a step, they're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Well, we will see with that team, but definitely interesting to see. I don't think it's still so much of a controversy as much as they're going to be in a position where they might be able to move one of those 2 guys if it came down to it, before the trade deadline or something, and team needed a quarterback. They might be able to get a piece back that they can use if they are doing something. I'm not sure. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about some of the wide receivers that we saw, and makes me want to get in because I think this is an interesting topic. So let's get into Jay's fantasy roundup. This is portion of the program where we talk about your fantasy lineups, things you can do, additions, subtractions. I know this. Yesterday, the banker sat at the show for 3 hours trying to set fantasy and do his fantasy draft, and he's asking everybody around him, who to help in this, and shout out to Rip for throwing Jared and I under the bus and saying do anything's the opposite that Steve and Hoodie say. So shout out to that guy there for that. But obviously that struck home. No, but he's a sharp guy, and he was giving him some really good advice. They were actually talking Pat Freiermuth, which I thought was interesting. But no, it was seeing people set their lineup. So it's that time. But there was a guy that kind of stood out amongst all these real young guys, huh?
Yeah, I thought so too. And this just goes without saying that Pittsburgh Steelers have a knack for finding whoever the scout is for their wide receivers. I feel like they strike gold all the time. And you can say James Washington wasn't striking gold because he hasn't really done much. But I feel like every year that they draft a receiver, it's these guys that you've maybe never heard of that end up coming in and being studs. They've done it for years and years. Mike Wallace's, the Plaxico Burress's, and now you have guys there like Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. This year, George Pickens. George Pickens looks like everything he was touted to be. He ended up going 3 for 43, 1 touchdown. He led the team in targets. So both quarterbacks are actually targeting him. And the guy looks like he's the real deal. He looks like he's the guy that's going to make it to where they don't re-sign Chase Claypool. Because that's been the knock on Pittsburgh is they really don't re-sign their receivers. Antonio Brown was another guy that came from a small school like Central Michigan. So no one was talking about Antonio Brown before he got drafted. So they have just this knack of finding these stud receivers and turning them into superstars. And it looks like George Pickens is the next superstar.
Well, Pickens went to Georgia, right?
Yeah,
he's a
Georgia.
bulldog.
He wasn't a small school.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that they have that knack. But he also wasn't the first wide receiver taken. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It wasn't like he was taken up in the top 10 of the draft.
He looked really good. Now, when you talk about route runners, he looked like, it reminded me of like the first couple of times I saw Jalen Waddle last year, and I was like, Jalen Waddle's really good. This guy, you look at him and you go, this guy is really, really good. And there's the receiver from San Francisco. They drafted this year. Danny Gray is another guy. Really, really good route runner.
He's
like
fast.
he might be the best route runner of them all. And now that I've kind of seen them on the field in the NFL capacity,
He was fat, and on that bomb from Trey Lance, that 75-yard touchdown pass, like that dude's quick. Danny Gray ran right past his defender.
yeah.
So like it just goes to show like he's one of my guys that I have up. I have Kenny Pickett, who we already talked about. We don't talk about him. And a guy that you mentioned just for real quickly earlier is Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
He obviously got the start. Kirk Cousins, even if he would have gotten the start, he would have thrown maybe 1 or 2 passes and been out of the game anyways. But Mond ended up having 2 touchdowns. He looked really good in the preseason against the Raiders. If you want to call it their number 1 preseason defense, it was their second game. The Raiders' second game. So they played in the Hall of Fame game last week, but Kellen Mond looked good.
And they did defensively. They did go after him the first 2 series.
Yes.
They went after him, and he had the little bit of the pressure and whatnot, but he got rid of the ball. He was smart with it. He didn't make the mistake. He didn't throw the ball into traffic.
Right.
He didn't run and do something egregious. He was smart with how he commanded the offense. I thought that this was a really interesting spot, whereas we're the complete opposite of Jordan Love. I'm going, this team's got a future with this guy at quarterback.
Yes, I think so too. I think that once Cousins does, get out of town, basically, that the Mond to Jefferson is going to be one that you look at for quite a long time. I think he's going to be a good quarterback.
Yeah, and don't forget he's got Adam Thielen to throw to. He's got some guys that can play.
He's older, so he won't be there much longer.
Yeah, but he can still help that team out. He's going to demand some interest,
Yeah.
So that's your 3 up for.
Yeah. My 3 down. My 3 down is kind of funny. So I have Josh Jacobs on a down. I just don't think the Raiders like him very much. The fact that he played so deep into that first Hall of Fame game, that first preseason game, that's very telling. Because usually games like that, starters don't play. Like, you had nobody else out there on the starting rotation for the offense, and then Josh Jacobs played well into the first quarter and even longer. So that's very telling to me. And the fact that they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. I think they're going in a different direction. I think this is Jacobs' last year in Las Vegas. They drafted Zamir White, which is who Josh McDaniels wanted. So, like, a lot of things are going to happen in that. So he's a down.
I think we thought that Zamir White was going to be the Zamir White show.
Yeah, and right now they have him, like, I think 4th in the depth chart, but they also have Kenyon Drake there who didn't play at all. So I think that White might be the future they kind of look at, and Josh Jacobs will be gone soon.
Now, do you think, just before we move on here,
Yeah.
do you think he's a guy that they would move before the season?
Who's that?
Josh Jacobs? Would they move him before the season here? If you could take back an offensive tackle or someone on the defense that helps you in the secondary?
Not right now. Unless somebody really gets hurt and they're really short on depth, they're not going to move Josh Jacobs. That's one thing that you always want, especially the cap set. They're already in the season. Like, you want running back depth because it's a long season. These running backs get the shit beat out of them. So you want that depth. And I think they're going to go out there and they're going to run him into the ground and basically be like, most coaches, hey, we're going to run you 3 times. We're going to get you a replacement in there. Let's go. Let's try to get you through the season. I think the Raiders are going to do the opposite approach. They're going to run Jacobs into the ground and see if he can hold up. If he can't hold up, they'll quickly move off.
Just move to the next guy.
And they don't have him signed past this year, so what does it cost them? Nothing.
Well, there was something else interesting from Raiders camp, right, about Derek Carr?
Yeah, Derek Carr, well, you looked up, you and I were talking about this off the air, but Derek Carr, if you go back and do some digging, he has yet to throw an interception in training camp. Like, he hasn't thrown a pick.
Not against anybody. Not against other team. Not in practice. Not in 7-on-7s.
Yeah.
Are we surprised? I think all of us know that he's a good quarterback.
He's very accurate. I just feel like he doesn't get the due that he deserves.
I don't think he's ever had the amount of weapons that he needed on a team. The only time that he did was when he had Amari Cooper and who was his other?
And he was favored for the MVP.
Yeah, and when he had the weapons, he put up huge numbers. They were running away with it, and he got hurt. If he doesn't get hurt, he probably wins the MVP and they make the playoffs and probably make a good run at it. The very next year, they get rid of Amari Cooper, and then the weapons go down. Now
they got rid of their tight end then too. What was his name? He's still playing. I can't. I'm drawing a blank.
Before Waller?
Yeah. They had a tight end too. I don't remember who it was. But anyways, they got rid of their tight end at the same time. It was literally they traded Cooper and Am all at the same time. And
so we all look around. This is his year.
Yeah.
He's got the big time weapon with Devontae Adams. He's got Renfro. He's got Waller, who's probably the best tight end in the game right now. So he can't say anything else. If he does not put up this year and put up the big numbers
he's just gonna have to.
The toughest division in all of football. Like who loses? Who comes in fourth in that division between the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Raiders, and then the Chargers? Like who comes in fourth? like
Broncos
with Russell Wilson.
It's hard. That's what.
Yeah, it's so tough.
So Carr could have a fantastic year.
The Chiefs coming fourth. What do we say there?
It's so hard to look at that division and see.
And unfortunately, I don't want that to happen, but you know it's gonna be the Raiders.
My boy, Max Crosby is gonna own that defense this year. He's gonna lead the league in sacks, I hope, and then we're gonna be right there.
I'm gonna lean and say that Bosa is probably gonna lead the league in sacks with Mac on the other side, but
it's a homer pick. But go ahead.
That is but
my other two down. Okay, my other two down really fast, and we'll move on. Zach Wilson, you all saw it. Like he was playing that preseason game, he took one rush to the outside, kind of made a little move, a little wobbly, went down without contact. So everyone's fearing the worst. They immediately put out there that it wasn't as bad as they initially thought. Ends up being a meniscus tear. Not good, definitely not good. So he's out 2 to 4 weeks. My point is that when he does come back, how confident is he going to be in that knee? Because that's a pretty big aspect of his game is kind of running, and making plays with his legs.
Right.
Is he going to feel confident in that? And if he does, is he going to constantly be thinking like, this could be the next big injury type thing? So I'm a little bit down, and it's disappointing because I actually like Zach Wilson quite a bit. I thought he was going to have a big year, but this is the kind of thing that sets you back.
Yeah, he's soft. Hands down, he's soft. I tore my meniscus my senior year, and I still competed. I still wrestled my whole year.
You play against NFL guys?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I didn't sure.
I think
soft. He's from BYU. There's nothing good ever from BYU. So
his girlfriend. And then the Chicago offense is down. I couldn't pick one guy to pick off the Chicago Bears offense, but I don't know if you watch any of that game, but their offensive line is terrible. I don't care how good Justin Fields might be, he has no time to throw. And then when he does,
who are they throwing to?
His number one receiver is Darnell Mooney, and then he has like some decent running backs there. Yep. But the more I watch them, and I still love my two guys behind David Montgomery. I still love Tristan Ebner and Khalil Herbert. But man, the Chicago offense looks bad.
Well, and the problem is that the running backs, those guys are skill guys. Those running backs there, they're not blocking backs. They're not there to get you extra time. And their offensive line is really, really bad. There's a chance that they might have the worst offensive line in the NFL.
Yeah, Justin Fields he'll be running for his life.
And that's what I mean. So you're not going to see Justin Fields' full potential because the dude's going to be running for his life, and he's going to have to make plays the best he can, and he doesn't even have like a big name playmaker there. He doesn't have like a Devontae Adams or a Tyreek Hill. Like he has Darnell Mooney. He's good. He's a number 2. Yeah, he's not a number 1. Yeah. Right. Nobody can say Mooney's the number 1 in the NFL. Right, but he's the number 1 on their team. So by default, like he's going to be the guy. And I just that's why I couldn't pick one guy on their offense. Like I think their whole offense is down. I don't want to draft any Bears in any of my fantasy leagues.
And also you're playing at Soldier Field, and everybody that came out and said like this is a hazard. Playing games at this field is a hazard.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do it. They had a huge concert the week before, and the field had potholes, and it looks like shit. If it looks on TV like shit, it's playing like shit.
I mean, it looks like they're getting a new facility out there. Is what it sounded like, right? They're going to move it to Rosemont. I thought.
No, they turned it down.
Gosh,
so
what is it?
Even you talk about the LA Coliseum that's been open for 50 or 60 years.
Right.
Even they're doing renovations. Because that thing was falling apart. We went out there for a game to go watch the Rams play a couple of years ago before the new stadium got built.
Yeah.
And that thing was in shambles. Well, they're doing renovations on it. But Chicago, their Soldier Stadium, no.
Yeah, because it's owned by the city. The city does not want to put any more money in it. And every chance they get, if the Bears aren't in there, they're putting something in there. There's a concert, there's this and that throughout the whole summer. It's like,
Well, they're not built like Phoenix or Vegas, where they can pull in the college turf and do the because that's what happens. Every concert's on UNLV's turf in Vegas. Yeah. It's not on the NFL turf.
No.
It's an interesting thought when you think about what that team potentially has as far as some of the skill set players that they have, because Khalil Herbert and some of those running backs are nice. I think we all think that Justin Fields is going to be able to play. It's just whether he's going to actually get an opportunity to show that he can play or not. I don't think there's any doubt in that.
Now you're probably sitting at home laughing.
Yes, he's definitely laughing.
Yeah.
Christian is asking about Lynn Bowden this year. What's your thoughts on Lynn Bowden?
If you're talking fantasy-wise, I'm not touching him in any draft. I actually just cut him in Dynasty about 2 weeks ago because I needed some roster space with the rookie draft coming up. He's a nice little gadget guy. But they're never going to put him in as quarterback. Maybe he gets a trick play here and there, but the dude's lightning fast, and I just don't see any future fantasy-wise. And also, I mean, if you want to even talk about the card market, he's not going to have much of a future in the card market either.
Yeah, his consistency I don't think is going to be there.
He's a trick gadget guy.
And it's not Taysom Hill gadget guy. They're not going to use him that way. He's a 1 or 2 play a game guy that might touch the ball a couple of times a game.
Right.
And I agree there. I actually think Edwards is probably more of the play there, and they're saying that watch for Hunter Renfrow to have a monster year, because this is the first time he's playing with someone that's going to take the double team away from him, because he played as well as he did last year, being double teamed, and he played against some really good defensive backs last year and had big games.
Even Edwards is gone. Edwards is in Atlanta now.
That's right.
So Brian Edwards got traded, which I think is
that's right. I forgot about that.
He's in Atlanta now. So I think that you'll have a couple of games here and there where he does something, but it's not going to be enough to warrant playing him in the fantasy lineup ever.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Anything else from the fantasy side as far as football goes?
Not as far as football, but I do have interesting breaking news for baseball.
Yes.
We found out about 15 minutes before we went live, Walker Buehler. Injury, done for the season. He's having elbow surgery. Is this the collapse of the Dodgers that we see year after year as it gets close to playoff time?
This team still has, a great starting rotation. They still have probably the best, probably one of the best lineups out there. But yes, it does hurt. It's big time hurt. Yeah. He was their ace.
Yep.
And now you're going into the playoffs without your ace. And you have to play Atlanta, and you have to play New York, and you have to play these guys that it's not going to be easy now.
How come we sit here and we still can't? And I can't do it either. And yes, I'm a little bit of I'm not going to say a Dodger hater, because you got to appreciate greatness, right?
I am a Dodger hater.
But how come we never ever say Tony Gosselin's the guy now? He's on his way to I mean, if he stays on pace, unless just what's happening in New York happens, but if he stays on pace, this guy's probably going to win a Cy Young.
Yeah, I know. It's
right?
ridiculous.
And he might win a Cy Young.
You keep waiting for him to fall.
Should have started the All-Star game, but they gave the nod to Kershaw, as they should have, out of respect, right?
Yeah.
And we still look at it and go, is Gosselin the third, maybe the fourth? Would you take Urias over? Would you literally take Kershaw, Urias, and Buehler before you would take Gosselin? And,
with the way he's pitched this year, though, he deserves it. You just keep waiting for him to mess up and start getting hit, and it's just not happening yet.
Do you remember Charles Nagy?
Yeah.
Right? Nagy was nasty during the regular season, and then right before the playoffs, he had a couple of bumps, losses, and then just didn't look dominant. He won a game, but he didn't look dominant like he did, whereas he looked... I feel like that. I'm waiting for that moment with Gosselin, where he just doesn't look dominant. And I thought, new Padres lineup. We're going to go into LA. It's going to look like that. And the guy shut it down. That was when they shut the Padres out that game. And I don't know. It's just we keep knocking the guy, but this is a huge loss for the Dodgers. I think this is a bigger loss for the Dodgers than people realize, because this guy was going to be matching up probably against Max Scherzer, right? If we all had to end the season today, we probably have the Mets and the Dodgers in the NLCS, right? And it's going to be DeGrom versus Gosselin. Now Kershaw's your third. Kershaw's your 3 now.
Yeah,
Urias comes out of the bullpen. No, Urias comes out. But now
Dustin May.
Yeah.
Dustin May's coming back too.
May comes back and he's
big Karen Powell.
Yeah. And he takes. But I at this point, I'm thinking that Gosselin probably matches up as your 1. You have to. You got to play the high end, right? That's what you do in baseball. So this guy probably starts the first game of NLCS for the Dodgers. and he's going up against Clayton Kershaw, and that would have been going up against DeGrom.
Yeah.
2 is going to be Max Scherzer, and I think we all thought that was going to be Buehler-Scherzer. Now it's not going to be Buehler. We know that. Buehler's done for the season. He's gone. So this is a significant hit. Question's going to be, Dodgers seem to always do this, guys. They do, and I don't know why. How do they do this? I just feel like Dodgers will get they will get an arm before the waiver wire deadline. For some reason, they're always able to pull it off. I don't know how it is. And they always pull some magic out their hat and get somebody to fall to them that shouldn't fall to them. Mm-hmm. And is this the time it's going to happen? I don't know. But
do you see it? I don't see it happening.
I don't. I really don't. I think they're going to be hurting. I'm sure they're going to be looking and trying to add somebody and trying to figure out a way to get another piece. Do I think they have enough to win the World Series? That lineup's pretty damn good.
That lineup's really good. And they added Joey Gallo.
Yeah.
And Gallo is a different player. He's looked completely different than he did in the Bronx. No, I'm telling you that the lights that are in Brighton, New York, are not the same lights that are on in LA. No, because in New York, they're there at first pitch.
Yeah,
and they're there at fourth inning in LA.
In LA, the game starts at 7:00.
Yeah.
You really don't see any fans until about 9:15.
They're not going to see his first plate appearance.
Yeah, they're only there for 40 to get their selfie and out. They hit their selfies.
They're not going to see. A guy that I think, just really quick to finish up this Dodger talk, don't be surprised if a guy like Kyle Hendricks sneaks through the waiver wires and gets picked up by a team like the Dodgers, and the Dodgers end up eating, a few $1 million they probably shouldn't, or something like that, to take the guy, to at least give them some innings on the back end of the season here.
Do it for Vince this year.
I mean, we always want to believe in that, and you always want to say those things, and there's a monster out in the East that's really hard to overlook, even though they haven't won as many games lately as they were. This team reeled off 12 wins before a loss finally. Dodgers have looked really good. The guy that I really want to talk about, I've been talking about him, I mentioned him a few times, and that is Jacob deGrom. And his teammates are calling him an alien. They're saying this guy comes back, and you really have to watch him pitch. So I watched every pitch he threw in his last outing in one of those little condensed videos of every pitch he threw. The guy's throwing wiffle balls with a Major League Baseball. That's the best way I can explain it. You without watching Jacob deGrom pitch right now, it doesn't even make sense. He is 101 with 8 inches of movement. It's incredible.
He's fun to watch, man. I can't wait for the playoffs where they get that because that's the time to watch baseball.
I was wondering why Alvarez hadn't been called up yet. And I was reading up on it, and that they're concerned about him defensively. He's got a great arm, good footwork. They're afraid of him defensively with a couple of these guys with what they have.
Well, what I was hearing is that the veteran pitching staff that the Mets have prefer a veteran catcher. They'd rather lack in the hitting aspect rather to have a veteran behind the plate calling the game for them. So that's the reason why they're not going with Alvarez as of right now, is because they want his bat in that lineup. Yeah. Of course they do. However, when you have Scherzer and deGrom and these guys saying, hey, we want a veteran presence back there calling.
Tyler McGill's looked really good this year too. So you've got guys in that.
Who's DHing for them?
They're rotating, but they got giving chubby guys some love. What's his last name?
Oh, Vogelbach.
The
dude we watched it last year in Milwaukee. And we're like, dude, who's this guy? And then he dropped a bomb, and then he just did it the other day. I love that guy.
So he's the guy that. No, he that dude right there. I'm telling you though, he's just the guy that I vision him. He's sitting off, and for him, it's like a case of Dos Equis. He's got a case of Dos Equis there. He's 3 deep before every at bat. So by the fourth at bat of a game, he's at the case in.
Like John Daly.
Just goes up there and he's the no F's given guy.
Yeah.
He swings hard 3 times.
Yeah.
And leaves the yard more often than not.
Yeah.
He's a really, really fun, interesting storyline for this team. He is one of those characters that when it comes to the playoffs, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be... People are going to be walking around with it his head on a shirt and stuff like that.
Like Pablo Sandoval.
Like when they had the panda shirts and all that. So that's something's going to happen here. But Jacob deGrom, I've been saying it. He's the best pitcher in baseball, and I can't find a close second. Alcantara is probably the closest guy to him. Yeah. There's not anybody else that's better than Jacob deGrom, and I've watched a lot of baseball. Obviously, I played ball. I played with some really good players. I got to see some guys that have done some amazing things. I've been at some major league games and watched some amazing things happen. And Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher I've ever seen throw a baseball. And I can't think of anybody else that really matches up to him with the stuff that he has. Yeah. I've never seen anybody be able to throw it that hard and have that much movement.
The only guy that comes to mind when I watch him is Randy Johnson. Yeah. Randy Johnson threw the ball so hard, and the way he threw it, it would end up 6 or 7 inches away from where your eye thinks the ball's going to go.
The only thing with Randy Johnson is Randy Johnson would reel 5 off, and then he would go out and throw an absolute pile. So he'd be 22 and 6,
but I think
22 and 8, right?
More so dealt with, because he's out boozing and getting all.
Yeah, and that might be the reason for it. Stuff-wise, this dude's ready to go. He's an absolute monster.
Yeah, he is.
It's incredible to see, some of that. Getting into plus or minus a little different this week. I'm just transitioning here because we're going to just have a little bit more baseball talk. Is Fernando Tatis took the suspension. I see you shaking your head, Jimmy, and I specifically held this to this point. Tatis hasn't been there. So from a chemistry standpoint for the team, everybody's kind of like, they're upset they got rid of C.J. Abrams. No, Kim has played shortstop well this year. He's hit. He's a nice player. He does everything they ask for. And when you think of like a playoff team, he's the guy that he's not going to be afraid to bunt if they ask him to. He's going to do everything that the team needs him to do. And he can hit. He can swing it. He's not Tatis. Nobody is, right? Nobody is that guy. The suspension was for Clobuterol. Here's where my fall off is, and this is where me as a fan and being a Padres fan, incredibly disappointed. He comes out and he apologizes for it, and I wish he would have just left it at that. I wish he just would have said, "I made a mistake. I'm serving my suspension, guys. I'm sorry. My bad." Right? I made a bunch of mistakes this year. Maybe I need to clean it up. He goes out and basically tells this fabricated story about ringworm, which it turns out that the ingredient, not even in a ringworm medicine, there's another ingredient that is similar to it that's not in it.
That are different.
Yeah, so it's not the same thing. So we all know he's full.
Right,
so we all know he's full of shit, right? So then that got them asking him, well, what really happened on the ATV? What happened on the whole thing? What happened with your wrist? What happened with that? All of this stuff going on to the point AJ Preller comes out, and now you want the silver lining in my eyes on this is that all the knocks that AJ Preller was getting on some of the moves he was making and money he was spending and all this stuff is, I think San Diego is a leader finally. He stood up and he said, we can't trust Fernando anymore. It's lost our trust. He will do everything in-house, and he will be under our watch from here on out.
100%.
Wow. I don't recall anybody in management ever doing that with their superstar, saying, nope, sorry, bud.
Well, because he's lying, now he's getting caught in lies, and so now no one believes any of the stories he's saying.
Exactly.
This happens all the time. It just doesn't come public.
Right.
Behind closed doors, it happens all the time. We hear it all the time. Look back at the Jordan documentary with Rodman.
Yeah.
They had to have one of his best friends and somebody else literally watching Rodman every single day at all times. Yeah. From the Bulls. They're like, where is he at? Who's he with? Who's he hanging with?
Well, he didn't even go to Vegas with Carmen Electra and disappear for 4 days. And
he would have did it too.
I mean,
you would have.
Carmen Electra.
Carmen Electra in her heyday,
Yeah. I probably would have went
in her heyday.
But that's the thing. It's like it happened, but nobody knew that story about the Bulls. That didn't come out during the playoff run. But now, this day and age with camera phones and everything that's out there and all this stuff, now these coaches and these GMs have to get out in front of it because guess what? If they don't, it's their job.
The guy I can think of that I remember this last happening was with the Cowboys, the defensive player that got in trouble. That they
Leon Lett.
No.
There's a lot of Cowboys guys.
Yeah, but anyways, he's one of the guys that they just basically like, look, he's under a curfew, he's under this, he's under that, and that's what's happened to Tatis, and that goes one of two ways. The superstar bows his neck, and then he's not going to come back and be what he was.
You talking about Randy Gregory?
Yes.
The guy that got busted for cocaine
remember,
like 5 times?
Yeah, remember when he got like. They're like basically he wasn't allowed to drive. They wouldn't let him drive, and they only sent car service. And he had a 24-hour driver that just sat in his driveway. Yeah.
Good luck in Denver, by the way.
But here's the thing: is that the Tatis thing? The news comes out. The other side of it is Soto's kind of like model citizen, one of those guys that like first there, last to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Sat down with Jeter like early in his career and had like a really heart-to-heart to. And Jeter really told him like stay off the radar, and we haven't. Have you heard anything about Soto being?
No, you never.
You don't. He's not with Wander Franco out in the DR partying. Oh, but Tatis was right. Like he's not doing that. The only hope that we have here is that he shows how much of a superstar he is to Fernando Tatis, and Tatis maybe starts to pay a little bit better attention and to follow suit.
He's only 23. So
that's the thing.
He's still young. I know 23 is an adult, but 23 is still young.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then like, it was even a story like when it came out. Like when did they test him? Like did they?
So he was tested earlier this year. Here's what we know. He was tested earlier this year. He's passed all of his drug tests. He was recently tested in minor league baseball when he went down. There was a random test for like all the infield. And it just happened to be when he showed up. Major League Baseball might not have actually tested him at all. They had tested him not that far before. Goes down, minor league test, reported to Major League Club, and there you go.
Wow.
So that's how you end up getting busted. But you know what? You did the crime, do the time. I'm a big believer in that. You absolutely should. I think my bigger portion now is, and the question to be asked is, what does this do to the Fernando Tatis market? My first takeaway before I gun to you, Jimmy, because I really want to have this conversation with you, is I didn't see an immediate impact on people fire selling off and just dumping their Fernando Tatis within the first couple of days. I didn't see that.
Well, so here's my first initial thought. You're going to take a bath. You're 100% going to take a bath in your Tatis because when you were buying your Tatis, you were buying them at a higher level. Those cards will never reach that potential ever again. So wherever you bought it, you're going to take a bath on it. So either you sell today or you wait and hold and hope that he gains some trust back with it. Because right now I have quite a few Tatis cards and some pretty big ones as well. For me to panic and sell those cards right now is the worst thing you could possibly do. Because yes, they're going to go down. 100% they're going to go down. However, if he does come back, after he serves his suspension, he gets himself right, gets in front of it, and says, hey, listen, I made a mistake. I've changed. I was young, dumb. I was hanging out with the wrong people, listening to the wrong crowd. I was excited to come back, and that's why I took this, because I was trying to rush to get back to play with Soto and Bell and all these guys. So he has to get out in front of it. Do I think yes, I think he's a superstar. Do I think what does Alex Rodriguez numbers do? He still does okay. How many times did he get bought for steroids? Twice. He got busted twice. Does he get the love in the Hall of Fame and grade on numbers? No. He's never going to be getting numbers like that, but he could get it back. He just got to keep his nose clean and grind out for 3 or 4 years. So I would take those Tatis cards and put them in the safe and forget about it.
Time to buy though, right?
Not yet. Wait until the off season. The best time is going to be in the offseason in December when everybody's talking trash about Tatis. Why? Because the Padres are going to be one and done in the playoffs, and they're going to be sitting there thinking, oh, this team's not very good.
If we would have had Tatis, we would have been better.
This and that, and now everybody's pissed off at Tatis, and his market's going to be really down. You buy in December Tatis, and then you have an opportunity to catch it. It's not going to ever jump to where it was.
Right.
Because, you're talking Tatis could have been put down as one of the top 3 to 5 players, to play the game, or most exciting player of our era.
Yeah.
Instead of that, it's not going to be the case, but he'll have the opportunity to come back.
And what I was just looking at is that the clostebol, is a steroid. It's a doping agent. It says that while it's less potent, it mimics the muscle building properties of testosterone without the estrogen buildup. It counteracts them. So it's basically like taking, steroids without that, or testosterone without the estrogen buildup.
Right.
So it's exactly what a banned substance should be. You know what I mean? It's not like there's any kind of
and he got caught.
Yeah.
He did, and I guarantee what happened was he went, he tested negative, and then decided to run a cycle. He was going to try to run a cycle right before he came back, so he'd be ready to rock and roll. He's probably on the tail end of his cycle.
It probably heals. He probably healed him a little bit quicker, like you said, because he wanted to get back faster. So
and then there he is. He goes out and he's showing he's ready to play and all this stuff, and then pop. My takeaway was this: is that the market was already down on Tatis because of the fact that he'd been hurt, and he was hurt twice. He was hurt at the end of last year, then got hurt when the season started again, which put him down. Mm-hmm. So those two things happening. His card market was already dipped. That's why we're not seeing that vast
it did dip.
sell-off.
However, there was a big incline knowing that he was coming.
It was building
now
back.
He just hit the minors and he was playing in the minors. Everything was building back up where everybody was buying Tatis again because they're a World Series contender.
Yeah.
Tatis is going to be there. I'm going to buy Tatis now at the low and sell him at the high.
Yeah.
And then he gets bought. So yes, it was lower-ish.
Yeah.
But it's still Tatis. You can't get that shit for cheap.
No, not at all. And so, Jimmy's take is kind of my take. If you believed in Tatis before, you're probably holding a 2-year hold for him. Before I was on the record saying 10 home runs and, you'll see a big spike in your market. Now they're going to want to see that. They're going to let the news get swept under the rug. The only thing I can say about it is, right, Andy Pettitte admitted and is in the Hall of Fame. So there's still a chance because he just admitted it right off the jump, didn't go through the denials, he didn't even try to, go up against the suspension, which he could have tried to do that and bought some games this year and all that stuff and everything. I think that says, I think that was his camp said, you appeal, that's what you do, and then I think he said, no, I'm in the wrong. Let's shut it down. So maybe that's
the steroids after he was in the Hall of Fame, or did he admit them before?
Before. When he was pitching for Houston, he said that he used. He's the only one that went on record that said he used. He said it was a mistake and he shouldn't have. And then that's when he threw Roger Clemens under the bus and they hate each other from that.
It's a mistake, yeah.
Right?
After he did what he did for the Yankees, now it's a mistake. That's key.
Yeah. But, that being the case. A couple other things from the plus-minus side for me. C.J. Abrams got the call-up from the Washington Nationals. When they transition over, this is very common in trades. Yes, he was on the Padres Major League roster, but he was a flex guy that would be bounced back and forth a little bit. You always move him over into your organization just to learn some things like the signs and some of that stuff that they use organizationally. So that would be some of the time that was. C.J. Abrams is going to come over. I'm just going to tell you guys now, C.J. Abrams will be the starting shortstop for the Washington Nationals for a while. So if you kind of pump the brakes on having him, this opportunity actually is going to be better for him. It's just going to be whether he actually gets a chance to hit this year or if it's going to become like O'Neal Cruz, where we don't really see what C.J. Abrams is till next year. Rumblings is Robert Hasel's not far behind him, so both those players in the Soto trade, that's going to impact their markets. I think Robert Hasel's impact is going to be much greater than C.J. Abrams, which is Hasel really hasn't had that big pop in the market yet, but he's a guy that could come up. He's stepping into Soto's shoes, so if that fan base starts talking about him right away, that could help out a little bit. And he's going to see playing time. They're not very good. Not very good with some veterans on that team that probably are going to get moved at this. Nelson Cruz is on there, and I just don't see how Nelson Cruz remains on that roster. Before the deadline for waiver wire transactions. So those are the things I have. I don't want to talk much football. Next week, I think we'll be a lot heavier in the football investment side. I think that's where we need to be talking about the second-year quarterbacks, the third-year quarterbacks, and receivers. Obviously, I'm very bullish on receivers. I think that's kind of the play because I don't think anybody here thinks that any of these rookie quarterbacks are going to see significant snaps this year outside of maybe a Kenny Pickett, right? No one else, and he's the only first rounder, right? So
stop agreeing with this guy.
Sorry, I just don't. If it is, it's because of an injury.
You want 20 on it too? I'll take.
I just think
it just seems like common sense.
I just think that Pickett. I think Pickett is in a situation to take someone's job. I don't see Desmond Ridder in the spot to take Mariota's job. That's the
and
difference.
That's my whole back.
That's the only difference between those two.
That's a lot of thought.
Best of luck.
A lot of thought was put into it.
Best of luck to you.
I didn't
If
just
you
make a
want
random
20, I'll
bet.
take your 20.
I put a lot of thought into it.
I love it. I
I
love
don't
it.
mind taking 20s from you guys.
Guys, we've changed our time. Of course, we are here every Monday starting at 3:30 p.m. Pacific for the Game Day Huddle. On YouTube, we're live. We are going to be transitioning and also putting it live onto the Whatnot platform. So we should have it on Whatnot in the next couple of weeks. So you'll also be able to catch the broadcast there as well as what we do. But guys, we've got an interesting week coming up. Is Patty fighting here soon? Is he?
Gimlet?
Yeah.
No, he just fought.
I just saw he was involved with something. Maybe it was just media, but there was something that he was doing.
Because he was in San Diego.
That's right.
He went to the UFC event. The guy is a nutcase. He's over 200 pounds already. Like he just fought less than a month ago. He fluctuates his weight so much, and he was talking in the media. He said to everybody, he's like, yeah, when I start fighting people that I know I need help with, then I'll start watching my weight throughout the whole time and training properly. He goes, the cupcakes that they're giving me right now, I could show up a week before, lose all the weight, and still smash him. So he's a fun, interesting guy. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's what I saw was that they were talking about Patty had he was being questioned about his weight a little bit in some media sessions, and I was like, is he training for a fight or is he not? Because if he's not, I'm not too worried about it. But if he is training for a fight,
he doesn't have a fight lined up.
Okay.
They're probably going to give him a fight in December here in Vegas. It'll be his first fight in Vegas. And guess who will be attending?
Oh,
You're
well,
repping
you
it,
will.
though?
You don't want to ref it?
I could be repping it.
We would like to
You did rep that one.
real shout out real quick. Jimmy got himself some TV time recently. Tell us about your experience with that.
So yeah, I've been officiating MMA for quite a bit. It's been about 8 years. So I'm finally starting to get some more action, get some call-ups, and we'll see what happens. Talk to some guys and put some feelers out there, so maybe I'll get some more UFC action. You might see me on some Contender Series coming up here pretty quick, and then we'll see what happens. Maybe we hit pay-per-view soon enough.
There you go. Well, and real quick before we go today, I heard a little bit of rumbling that you were going to be reffing against something, and it was just briefly out of your brother's mouth. I didn't really say much, and I was on the way out the door kind of when it happened. So then all of a sudden, Mike's wife posts up photos from the Thomas and Mack, and you at the fights, and you do it. I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, damn, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of people didn't know that I officiated. Well, I officiated wrestling for 20 years, but MMA for the last 8, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's something I'm passionate about. I enjoy it, and I like to be around MMA because you guys know I watch the sport religiously like everyone else. So. Should be a lot of fun, and we'll see what happens.
Get your Jimmy autographs before they pop up in price, kids.
Great.
Guys, thank you for being here, of course. With tons of shows coming up. Watch our social media, all kinds of stuff. And we do have a vlog that probably later in the week we'll try to get together and get out there from the Front Row Card Show and some of the stuff that we did there. Yeah. But otherwise, you got anything else, Jay?
No, we go.
Jimmy?
Let's go Monster Hunting.